Okay, so before I discuss the updates on this case, I think this one definitely calls for a Grifter of the Day award. This is Dolly Vision on YouTube, someone who I would never follow anyway. But I saw this post on Facebook and people are particularly upset, and I can understand why. He's put his title as Shocking Update on Jack and Lily Sullivan Update. Yeah, good grammar there. The family's phone's GPS held the clues. And then he has breaking news. OMG, this is some shocking news. And he has a photo of Daniel in the background and Malaya, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. The mother in the foreground, you'll notice he's put what appears to be a blood splatter on her clothing, and then in the background you have a forensics tent. And of course, anyone who's familiar with the Gabby Petito case will recognise that image. That image is the forensic tent from when they found Gabby Petito. This is possibly one of the lowest, scummiest things I've seen from any creators covering this case so far. So definitely a big thumbs down right now for Dolly Vision. Now, I think it's also important right now to discuss claims that have been made by the stepfather, because I think it's important to look at things with a critical and logical perspective. So the internet is buzzing at the moment with people saying that Daniel has come out and said that he did in fact do a polygraph test which he passed. I also saw a post where they said he had claimed or had told a news station that no, there were no parties prior to the children going missing. Now, I know there's a Daniel fan club out there, people who are saying, well, he stayed on the property, he handed over his phone, he went searching, and now he's done a polygraph. All these things mean that he is innocent. And I believe that he is even quoted as saying that having passed the polygraph, that proves he is innocent. So here's the thing we need to consider. And before I explain it fully, I'm just going to play a little clip from one of my favourite movies.
Well, the only way out of here is to try one of these doors.
One of them leads to the castle at the centre of the labyrinth, and the other one leads to certain death.
So if you're not familiar with Labyrinth, Sarah, the girl who's like the lead in the movie, is on a mission to rescue her baby brother from the Goblin King, and is going through a labyrinth that has all these delays and all these dangers. Comes across this gateway, and there's two doors. One door leads towards the castle, the other one leads to certain death. The catch being she can only ask one of the people guarding the doors a question.
Can't ask us, you can only ask one of us. It's in the rules. And I should warn you that one of us always tells the truth and one of us always lies.
So the classic dilemma, one of them always tells the truth, one of them always lies. The solution, and I won't play any more of it just in case I do get a copyright claim, is she decides to ask one of them this question. She says, answer yes or no, would he tell me that this door leads to the castle? And the answer that she is given is yes. So she chooses the other door. Basic logic. If she were to ask him if that door led to the castle and he said yes, then logically it wouldn't, because either the doorkeeper that she's asking is telling a lie, meaning that the other doorkeeper would say, no, that door doesn't lead to the castle, or he's telling the truth, meaning that if the other doorkeeper said, yes, it would lead to the castle, he would be the one lying. So she realised that it was the other door. So basically the logical conclusion here is that a liar is going to tell you that they are telling the truth, while a person who is telling the truth is also going to tell you they are telling the truth. So unless you have another way of verifying that information, then you need to be very cautious when someone who is involved with a case comes out and starts giving supposedly factual information. Let's just remember here that the Mounties haven't come out and said that they've cleared the parents in this case. I mean, to be frank, they haven't really come out and said much of anything in this case. But they certainly haven't come out and said that anybody in this case is cleared. So we certainly have to be cautious when we have information coming from one of two people who were the last people to see these children, as far as we know. One of two people whose stories didn't line up. Something else that is super important to take into consideration when you are weighing up how truthful the stepfather is his social media. These are the images that can be found on his Facebook account. And as you can see, there's only one photo, the photo on the far left, which includes Jack and Lily. That photo was added to his account after they went missing. There are a handful of photos of his own two children, but prior to Jack and Lily going missing, there were no photos of either of them on his social media. And this is an individual who is putting himself out there as the super dedicated, caring stepfather. Just let you think about that. When you look at Malaya's Facebook account, you can see that she has dozens and dozens of images of her children dating back to when they were itty-bitty teeny little babies. Now, I do find it a little bit concerning that people are jumping on the bandwagon and claiming Daniel must be innocent because he passed a polygraph test. First of all, it's in his best interests to tell media that he passed that test, regardless of whether or not he did. Also, we only have his word that he did a polygraph test. We've not had any information with regards to anything like that from investigators. Also, as previously mentioned, the Mounties have not come out and said that anybody is cleared in this case. Now, you may be aware that in Canada, like many places in the United States, a polygraph test is not admissible in court. Why is that? Because they are not 100% accurate. You may have heard of Gary Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer. He did a polygraph test early on in the investigation, and he passed that test. We now know that he was responsible for multiple deaths. he was able to pass the test because the guy is clearly a psychopath, but also because there are ways people can pass these tests if they are able to remain calm. So basically a polygraph test consists of a pre-testing interview where the tester is going to basically ask the individual who's going to be tested investigative questions. For this, or through this, they're gaining a baseline understanding of how that person answers, what their language is like, what their body language response is like, and they will ask specific questions which they know are going to elicit a specific response to give them a baseline, basically, of how that person reacts. Following the interview, that's when they administer the polygraph test. And this is a somewhat shorter interview where the person being tested is asked a series of questions, all of which have been discussed during the pre-interview. What occurs while they are answering those questions is that their physiological changes are measured. What is being looked for in terms of if they are being untruthful is an increase in their heart rate, increased sweat, and breathing changes. The thing is, these are all signs of anxiety. A person can be a bold-faced liar and can basically pass a polygraph test if they are not showing signs of anxiety. Even John Douglas, who is a prominent former FBI criminal profiler, has come out and said, look, these are not entirely accurate and can be beaten. Of course, the other side of this is that polygraph test results are confidential. There is no obligation for investigators to tell someone who has undergone a polygraph if they passed. And of course, in terms of investigative strategy, generally they are not going to tell someone if they have passed or failed. Which again goes back to, we have not had any statement from the Mounties saying that anybody has been cleared in this case. We've also not had any confirmation from the Mounties that any polygraphs have been administered. So let's talk about the latest bit of information from the Mounties. So in a press release, they revealed that they are resuming ground search efforts as part of their investigation into the disappearance of Lily and Jack. They've said, in an effort to advance the ongoing investigation and locate Lily and Jack, searchers from ground search and rescue teams and the RCMP will focus on specific areas around Gairloch Road and the nearby pipeline trail where a boot print was previously located. Again, they are asking the public to avoid the search area and to allow trained searchers to do their work, and are saying any future searches will be determined based on the course of the investigation. I should probably just mention here that snoring noise in the background is one of my chihuahuas. So, does this mean that they missed something when they were searching? Why are they going back and searching the pipeline where they saw the boot prints? This to me suggests one of two things. Now, first of all, we know that they actually searched the area where those boot prints were found really thoroughly and searched from a radius, like searched a radius from those boot prints really thoroughly and found no other evidence of the children. So they're not saying here that they made a mistake and should have searched more thoroughly. They have some reason to go back and research that area. That could be that they have gained additional information, or it could be that they have reviewed information that they got early on in the case and found anomalies or something that they need to check out again. It is also, of course, possible that in interviewing someone closely connected to the case, that person has leaked information which has led the Mounties to come back to the area and search specific locations again. One thing we can be confident about is that they're not going to return and search again unless they have some sort of investigative direction, meaning there must be something new that is leading them to head back and search the area again. So that to me says that the case is still progressing and there is an important reason for them to return to the area and do some more searches. And while I realise that the lack of information is frustrating for everyone, the fact that they are returning to do another search shows that this investigation is definitely not cold. They are still working hard to find Jack and Lily. So let's hope that sometime soon these beautiful children will be brought home. So that brings us to the end of this video again. I think I've covered just about everything that is important that we need to discuss. I do want to just mention the need to be cautious of believing people who come forward on social media claiming that they have seen the children or interacted with the children. Because for those of you who may not follow other cases normally, it is quite common when a case becomes so high profile to see all sorts of trolls come out of the woodwork who create fake accounts and make claims just to get their 15 minutes of fame. Now, I'm not saying that anyone is doing that, but I'm just saying just be cautious of people coming out and claiming information on the case who are not verified. And coming forward and saying they have particular credentials or they live in a particular location is not verification. Anyone can say they are anybody. They can say they live anywhere. They can say they do any particular profession. This is the problem with social media. People do lie. So on that note, I'm going to finish there. Thank you for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. YouTube likes that and it gets my videos out into the algorithm. And please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one.